my own hometown. Stranger.
Hey folks, Little John here, and just going to quickly do a taste test on the first of the cheap kit beer experiments. This was the one that was done using the Home brand lager, and it's fermented that out into two batches, one which was done as a relatively cheap batch and one was a little bit, work on spending a little bit more dollars on it and seeing how we go. The first half of the batch was just done with BE1, a small amount of Dex and some Amarillo, just for a small boil. Now, and it was fermented with the kit yeast, which is obviously in keeping with the cheapo option. Now, there was a drama on bottling whereby the first batch, that cheap batch, only dropped to 10-15. Exactly why, I don't know. I don't know whether it just hadn't finished or whether the yeast had stalled, and my belief was probably that it was a yeast problem. A pack of yeast isn't really enough to do the job, but so there was a bit of a concern that the fermentation hadn't finished and the bottling was going to cause potential problems. So who knows exactly what's going to happen when I open this bottle. She could go a bit haywire, but we will soon see. And no, nothing haywire, nothing out of the ordinary there, nothing excessive, so it's a good start. Got a bit of gas there. Seems to be reasonably carved, so yeah, no issue there. Looks to be well carved, so no drama there. That's all good. So the second batch was split, brewed up with 500 grams of light dry malt, so the equivalent of doing a kilo of malt, and 100 grams of Dex in it, which follows on with my standard sort of recommendation for a kit beer of a kilo of light dry malt and 200 grams of Dex. It also had 25 grams of Glacier in a 15-minute boil, and it was fermented with S189 hydrated, a full packet in the half batch, so the equivalent of 2 packs. And these were fermented in the garage here, just on the floor at ambient temperatures. And they sat out here basically around between sort of 15 and 18 degrees most of the time, so within a reasonable fermentation range for both the yeast. Obviously the basic kit yeast is going to work in that range, no problem. The S189 is reported to work up to 18 degrees without issue. I've never tried it myself, but so this is an interesting starter. Straight off the bat, I was looking at that Massey S189. It's not looking particularly healthy. There's no head on there, and a couple of little floaters on top. Hard to tell really what the smell's like, because I don't particularly think that the Home Brew kit's got a great nose to it. Anyway, so that's the basic cheapo one. I'm not sure off the top of my head what this one cost to make, but I think it was somewhere around about $17, $18. worked out would be for a full batch. That was this way. So this has been in the bottle now for a bit over 2.5 weeks, nearly pushing on towards 3 weeks. 16, 17, 18 days. So better part of 2.5 weeks anyway. It's nice and clear, I mean, which is typical of the kit yeast. Plenty of carbonation going on there, which again could be partially from that higher gravity. I obviously, didn't expect it to finish that high. I would have expected it to finish more like the 1008 that the S189 finished at. The starting gravity was 1037, so it should certainly have got down there without any problems. But so there's very little nose on it, just a tiny hint of malt. And then maybe just a slight touch of the Amarillo there. As I said, there was 20 grams of Amarillo into the half batch, so the equivalent of a 40 gram hit, so it's a decent plug. The Amarillo's there. It's not massive. It's not as big as what one. Yeah, not as much there as one would sort of think, given the amount of the dose. But the malt's really, the malt flavour's there, but it's a bit strange. It's there's almost like a slickness without the oily of that sort of slick sort of taste you quite often get. You can pick up with a kit beer at times. It's a slick in the initial feel, but it's not staying in the mouth. But it certainly doesn't taste like a beer that's finished at 10:15. So I don't know what the story was there exactly. Whether it's finished fermenting off in the bottle, I don't know. That's reasonably, the body's reasonably light, so it's clearly rectified itself, and the high carb level is possibly an indication of that. As I said, the temperatures haven't been particularly warm here in the garage, so it's not going to kick on with high carbonation really quickly, and that's probably better than I would have expected at this point. But leave him for a minute. I'm going to come back over here to the S189. Yeah, it's got good carbonation. It's not as clear as that kit yeast. I mean, it's not far off. It's pretty good. So I said, this has got glacier in it. It's more malt, so you'd expect it to be a little bit darker, which it is. There's probably more darkness than actual clarity. So there's just an unusual sort of a nose to it. Can't really put my finger on exactly what it is at the moment. There's no head there. And very little in the way of flavour. It's very boring, for want of a better word. I said there's no real noticeable nose. Again, I said there's a good whack of glacier in there. The hop is there. You can taste the hops there. You can taste them. It's not a specific. I've never used glacier before. This is completely new, and given I've never used a home brand lager before, it's sort of a little difficult to really pinpoint exactly where the flavour is. But the hop flavour is noticeable in there as separate to the malt. It's almost a hint of mint. So just a little bit bitey. I think perhaps a 15-minute boil may have been just a little bit too much. Maybe it could have been pulled back to 10 minutes to maybe to really hold on to the flavour a bit, not possibly send it more into that bitterness side. That being said, neither of these beers is particularly bitter. Pardon me. They're both fairly light from that aspect. The malt profile is fairly similar on both. It's very, very, very light. Does definitely have an unusual sort of finish on it. It's not, it's not super unpleasant, And if you're after, and if brew and cheap beer is what you're after and what you're looking to do, then this sort of probably it achieves that end, but. You couldn't. I couldn't sit down and drink much of that. I don't want to drink any more of it, really. That being said, that's definitely a long stretch off being the worst beer I've ever drunk. And I expected it to be. Well, I really expected this to be fairly ordinary. It is. It's ordinary, but it's not. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I've certainly had a lot worse commercial beers, which is really embarrassing for a commercial brewer. But it's true. That beer, there's just an underlying something that's just flavour that's just off a little bit. It's just off kilter. It's not, again, not bad. This is better than that. So that slickness that's coming through in that really is quite detracting. That is drinkable. Whatever the head issue is that, I think it may improve as the carbonation level comes up a little bit. That could have something to do just with the lager yeast. Giving that a bit of agitation, there's a little bit of head coming on it. But I think that little bit the extra malt has helped it a little bit. There's a little bit more interest in the flavour. The glacier is probably working. I mean, it's not doing a hell of a lot in this, but I think in a similar style with a little bit more oomph behind it, with a little bit more work into that hop, I think it could work. It's got I don't think it's particularly big. I don't think it's particularly going to be a hop that I'm going to be a big fan of. But I can see that there would be plenty of people that would be a fan of it. Probably leaning a little bit towards that Nelson sort of flavour, that winey, grapey sort of flavour, which is not a flavour I like, so it's not going to help it any as far as I'm concerned. So there you have it, the cheap kit beer. It's done. Now, like I said, if you're after cheap beer and you're not really caring about what you're drinking, all you're worried about is cheap drink, you know, knock them back, get yourself a little bit sozzled, and forget about fucking life. Go for it. But really, the reality is, if you want to make a decent beer, and that's what most of us are doing it for, this is not the way to do it. Whether it's the can base particularly, I don't know. I've just bottled previously. So I've done a similar sort of experiment with a Cooper's Lager. And we'll see how that goes in a couple of weeks' time when that's done, and whether that makes any improvement on this. So I can't say for sure right now that the tin base is particularly the issue, but I can say that these beers are great. I wouldn't recommend anybody to be brewing them. So if you're looking to do brews and you're looking to do something, you want to save yourself some money, look for something a bit better when it's on special, perhaps. As we've seen from prices and the costs of doing other batches, it's not a massive amount of money involved in making a decent sort of a beer. For well under the half the price of what you're paying retail, you can get some better ingredients. And as I said, we'll see how that goes with future stuff. But right now, the home brew can with the recommended sort of dose of sugars, I'm not recommending that to anybody at all. It looks alright, it looks good. That's as far as it goes. That taste is just getting harder and harder to deal with as it gets through. I mean, I couldn't imagine you being thirsty enough to really to enjoy that. As I said, that is better. I mean, so it does show that a little bit of malt, some decent ingredients, some decent yeast, and you can make a keep beer better. And plenty of brewers would be happy with that. But again, I think we can do a lot better. Really, without spending much more dollars. For a couple of bucks extra a batch, I think we can do better than that. So that's where we'll be on the next video, the next tastings with the step up in the Cooper's Lager. I'm going to do a Cooper's Cerveza again as well shortly, in the coming, hopefully the next week or so. Same thing, we'll split it two ways and we'll do two different versions and see how that comes out. I might do one of those in the style of the famous Kingsley Passion Fruit Cerveza. I've done the Passion Fruit Cerveza myself previously from a kit. I've done the Passion Fruit Cerveza on video as an all grain. But we might do the kit base. The Kingsley's recipe is very well known, and it comes out quite reasonable. So we'll look at that. But we're doing that. There'll be a couple other kit based stuff going on in the next ongoing, working around these different methods and different things to make these beers a little bit better. For the you guys at home that are doing kits, and that's where you want to be brewing. But yeah, as I said, if you're down the shop, you're looking for your brew gear, you know, and you've got your choice between a decent Cooper's tin for for $16, $18, and you got the home brand tin sitting there for $8. That'd be a fucking tight ass. Pull the extra $10 out and buy a decent can, because that's not good. Okay, so until we're looking at you again, we're tasting beer, drinking beer, looking at beer, brewing beer, doing beer stuff. Good brewing.